Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to pick up in 1 Samuel chapter 17. And when we left off yesterday, we left off with Psalm 23. And just as a quick note, which I'll try to remember, every now and then, it is the chronological study Bible that we're going through, and and throughout this section here, where it's really going to be evident that it's chronological, just with Psalms popping in here and there, and especially since a lot of the Psalms were written by David, and we now find ourselves right in the heart of the biblical account where David's in the court of Saul, the first king of Israel, and on the path to become the second king of Israel. And I will gladly send you the chronological study Bible so you can study along. All you have to do is send me an email at becauseloveneverfails@gmail.com and send me your physical address, and I'll make sure that you get the Bible, so you can follow along. Certainly, you can use any other Bible. Just because we'll be referencing as we go. Um, but this particular one is ordered in such a way, and we are going through it from Genesis. We started in Genesis, and we're going to finish in Revelation, and had set out on the journey to do 10 pages a day, and had calculated, I can't remember, 100 and something days based on the number of pages. God has steered us otherwise, and it's going slower, but that's a good thing. Just to just be in the Scripture together here, reading it, thinking about it, meditating on it, and ultimately, you know, finding for ourselves who is God. Who is God? What's the character of God? And just this beautiful um, un, un, unraveling, if you will, of this mystery of God in the Old Testament, and constantly pointing to the New Testament of the Son Jesus Christ, and how it all comes together for the redemption of mankind, for us ultimately, as in Hebrews, that we can walk boldly to the throne of God in Christ, and and have interaction and relationship with our Father. So, picking up in chapter 17 here. Before we do though, I just in starting to read chapter 17, I looked back at Psalm 23 again, and just before we leave off of it, entirely, as I was read Psalm 23 again, and the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. I really thought of David as a shepherd. What it must be like to be in the fields alone on starry nights, and to be the shepherd yourself, in that moment with the sheep, and then to just to live that life on a day in day out basis, to wake up, taking care of the sheep, making sure that they have water to drink, that they have good pastures to feed in, guiding them, probing them, and rescuing them, as we'll see later on here, from lions and bears and whatnot, wolves, um, and then on the move, on this hike, and so on the move through valleys, as he said in Psalm 23, the valley of the shadow of death, even on mountaintops, I'm sure, as he's going along, and ultimately recognizing and seeing, that it's ultimately an abiding in God. And Christ even tells us that in the New Testament. Again, this pointing to Christ. Christ says, "Abide in me," and this ultimate abiding in God here in Psalm 23 is just precious and real. Lest we just put it off as, hey, that's a cool psalm. To think about it, to meditate on it, and realize that this was a life. David lived, and he was also considered a man after God's own heart. So, chapter 17, 1 Samuel, David and Goliath. It's a well-known account. Most people, if they know whatever they know about the Bible, they certainly know of David and Goliath. And here we are, 17 verse 1. Now the Philistines gathered their armies together to battle, and were gathered at Soka, which belongs to Judah. They encamped between Soka and Azekah in Ephes Damim. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together, and they encamped in the valley of Elah and drew up in battle array against the Philistines. The Philistines stood on a mountain on one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side, with a valley between them. And a champion went out from the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath from Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and his span, which correlates to about 9 foot 9 inches, which is certainly large. He had a bronze helmet on his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze, which would be about 125 pounds. I don't know if you've ever been hiking with a 30 to 50, maybe even a 60-pound backpack. I know some of you Army guys probably even 90-pound rucksack, but 125 pounds of armor. Now, mind you, you're ready for battle as well, so you would want a level of agility, and I can just almost imagine Goliath here in his just with his size and posture of being able to have that agility, even with 125 pounds of a coat of armor. And he had bronze armor on his legs and a bronze javelin between his shoulders. Now the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his iron spearhead weighed 600 shekels, 15 pounds that would be. And a shield bearer went before him. Then he stood and cried out to the armies of Israel and said to them, "Why have you come out to line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine, and you, the servants of Saul? Choose a man for yourselves and let him come down to me. If he is able to fight with me and kill me, then we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall be our servants and serve us." And the Philistine said, "I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together." When Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Thinking of this again, just really imagine it. Just in your mind's eye, just take some time to just and I'm sure you've seen movies, Braveheart, or some of the old movies of where you've got battlefields, and you've got or Rome, battles with Romans or Greeks maybe, but these groups of people, and you're facing each other, and you're seeing, I mean, this is, and imagining Saul here. It says, I mean, everyone, Saul and even all of Israel were dismayed and greatly afraid, as you're standing here with your group of your army, and now you're looking forward at the other army, and here's this great giant in the middle of the valley saying, "Send out a representative, just one man, let's fight, and let's let this dictate who wins." And who are they going to send? Meanwhile, verse 12, now David was the son of that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and who had 8 sons. And the man was old, advanced in years. In the days of Saul, the 3 oldest sons of Jesse had gone to follow Saul to the battle. So the 3 oldest sons were already in the battle with Saul, standing on this mountaintop. The names of his 3 sons who went to the battle were Eliab the firstborn, next to him Abinadab, and the third Shema. David was the youngest, and the 3 oldest followed Saul. But David occasionally went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. So here he is still tending sheep. And the Philistine drew near and presented himself 40 days, morning and evening. Here's this standoff in this valley in between 2 mountains, this standoff for 40 days. And every day Goliath is coming out saying the same things, defying the God of Israel, defying the Israelites, and challenging them to battle. Just send me a man, let's fight. Then Jesse said to his son David, "Take now for your brothers an ephah of this dried grain and these 10 loaves, and run to your brothers at the camp, and carry these 10 cheeses to the captain of their 1,000, and see how your brothers fare, and bring back news of them." Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. So David rose early in the morning, left the sheep with the keeper, and took the things, and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the camp as the army was going out to the fight and shouting for the battle. For Israel and the Philistines had drawn up in battle array, army against army. And David left his supplies in the hand of the supply keeper, ran to the army, and came and greeted his brothers. This is, for whatever reason, this just really jumps out as very present tense to me. here's David. I mean, he's received this command from his father. He's just taking care of business. He's waking early in the morning. He's making sure that his sheep are tended to and well kept. He's now, coming, making the travel, here to where the fight, where everyone's gathered to fight, and he's just dropping off his supplies. He's just tending to his business, and then it says he goes, to greet his brothers, of course, right? I mean, hey, let's go check in, say hi. And then verse 23, then as he talked with them, there was the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, coming up from the armies of the Philistines, and he spoke according to the same words. So David heard them. So just as a consequence, here he is tending his business, talking to his brothers, and here's this giant, Goliath, out in the valley, saying what he's been saying now for 40 days, making this challenge. And he hears it. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him and were dreadfully afraid. So the men of Israel said, have you seen this man who has come up? Surely he has come up to defy Israel, and it shall be that the man who kills him, the king will enrich with great riches, will give him his daughter, and give his father's house exemption from taxes in Israel. And so David's getting up to speed here. He's being told what's going on. He's even now had the chance to hear the great giant spout out his defiance. And then David spoke to the men who stood by him, saying, what shall be done for the man who kills this Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? So he's focused. Now he's like, so what's the prize? What are we talking about here? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? Focused. And the people answered him in this manner, saying, so shall it be done for the man who kills him. So again, just repeating that. So shall it be done. I mean, so that gives indication that they would have repeated the prize to David. Now Eliab, his oldest brother, heard when he spoke to the men, and Eliab's anger was aroused against David, and he said, why did you come down here? And with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your pride and the insolence of your heart, for you have come down to see the battle. And David said, what have I done now? Is there not a cause? Then he turned from him toward another, and said the same thing, and these people answered him as the first ones did. He's not being turned aside here. His brother Eliab is why did you come down here? What are you up to? Those few sheep in the wilderness, just this total disdain for his own little brother. David hears him but then instantly turns aside to another and said the same thing. So again, inquiring of the prize, focused, and the people answer the same. Now when the words which David spoke were heard, they reported them to Saul, and he sent for him. Then David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine. Here's David's moment, and what had been proved by God in private. I mean, even again, reflecting back on that Psalm 23, just this relationship that David had with God, and what had been proved in private is now being relied on in public. David is finding his strength in God. David is I mean, there's no question. It was just with total focus. And I think of Jesus in the New Testament, where his focus is spoken of, and it says he had a face his face was like a flint, pointed. We see the same focus here. And Saul said to David, you are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. But David said to Saul, your servant used to keep his father's sheep, and when a lion or a bear came and took a lamb out of the flock, I went out after it and struck it and delivered the lamb from his mouth. And when it arose against me, I caught it by its beard and struck and killed it. Your servant has killed both lion and bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, seeing he has defied the armies of the living God. Moreover, David said, the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. We're going to leave off there. We've got a few seconds to just try to summarize. And, ultimately, God is the deliverer. David realizes this. He's focused. He recognizes that any power that he has is through God. And even with the lions and the bears, And so how is God preparing you now? David was prepared, and now he will be relied on. God bless you, and see you tomorrow.